Gaming Bolt presents Tom Clancy's The Division, 10 Reasons to Worry for the Future.
We have a lot to talk about, so without wasting your time, let us begin right away.
The lull. If you looked at the roadmap closely, you'll notice that the second expansion, Survival, is due out in the summer, while the third expansion, Last Stand, arrives in winter. Given all the content that will be heading to the game in the meantime, one could theoretically wait out the gap. Don't underestimate the voracity of MMO addicts though. At times, even if the content is substantial, it won't be long before it's completed several times after an expansion's launch. While Ubisoft Massive could theoretically announce something like new incursions and the like in between the second and third expansion, at this point, we're looking at the long time gap with nothing but concern. Expansion content. It's unreasonable to expect a game to have infinite content. In an MMO which relies so much more on loot than being max level, plentiful content is nonetheless important to ensure fans have a variety of things to do. Destiny's major failing wasn't the paucity of content at launch, rather, it was the utter lack of things to do. Every mission was a battle against bullet sponge bosses with no interesting mechanics. However, even if The Division does have varied content at launch, there's no guarantee that the expansions will live up to expectations. Even if you enjoy the base game, the experience could be easily ruined by a terrible expansion or two. On the one hand, we like the approach that's being taken. The expansions will actually be used to seemingly add new mechanics and expand on the experience, rather adding more of the same. On the other hand, will there be enough to justify the price tag? Time will tell, but it's worth watching out for all the same. Weapon balance. A marksman rifle functioned well in PvE, but a quick-firing shotgun could turn the tides in PvP. Likewise, if you manage to find that high-end assault rifle, you could tear through foes rather quickly in either mode. While we appreciate the variety that can exist, we're still a bit concerned about the future of other weapon types, like LMGs, which were severely underpowered. Also, it will be interesting to see how Ubisoft Massive reacts to concerns of weapon balance when certain guns are deemed OP and in need of a nerf simply because of their heavy usage. Look what excessive nerfing did to Destiny. While it's still in a good place balance-wise, there's nothing that really feels powerful like guns did in Year 1. Let's hope Ubisoft Massive figures this one out without severely ruining any potentially favourite guns we could come across. The Dark Zone. The Dark Zone in The Division isn't technically PvP, it's actually a clever combination of real-life players and AI opponents. You don't need to hunt down high-tier rogue players for lots of DZ funds, thus making NPC farming a viable option. However, when all content in the game is pretty much wrapped up, it will be the Dark Zone that gets players to come back. Will they really enjoy running around here and there for hours on end to farm enemies, or potentially challenge other players? How long before the grind becomes apparent? Hopefully those events and challenges that Ubisoft Massive have in mind for the Dark Zone are actually substantial for freshening the entire experience for non-PvP players. RNG. Nothing ruins a loot game, any loot game, like terrible RNG. Granted, it ultimately comes down to the player and how much they're willing to suffer for a particular piece of gear, but ideally, even if you're receiving gear that you don't need, one should be receiving high quality items at all times. Once again, the beta pointed us in an interesting direction with how one earns purple and gold items. It's more gameplay focused and less up to luck essentially, but that was the Dark Zone. What will be the drop rates for items in normal missions? Will the rewards jive with what players need, or at least provide them with something useful? Will players simply receive the same piece of loot again and again before that miraculous drop occurs? One certainly hopes not. Glitches and server issues. Ubisoft Massive has generally been good with its service for The Division and quick to fix major issues. However, there will come issues that take significantly longer to fix. There will be times when the servers go down or function sluggishly and take longer than usual to come back online. In those moments, we can hope that the developer stays in close communication with its fans, like it's been doing over the past few weeks, and continue to iron out issues. Nevertheless, there will be flack over these kinds of issues as they emerge. In those moments when the dev team is fully in crunch mode, we can't help but be concerned over what the live team will do to offer fixes. Communication. Speaking of close communication, remember when Bungie was so intimately talking to its fans without actually revealing how much content was in Destiny, or even what Destiny was? And then remember how it effectively went dark for long stretches of time, ignoring key issues and concerns for months at a time. Right now, Ubisoft Massive is being open and talking to fans, because well, that's how you sell a game. Now, we're not expecting 24-hour communication, but the biggest concern is the long periods of no communication that players could suffer simply because Ubisoft Massive doesn't want to, or can't say anything. Again, post-launch, this will be something to keep in mind, as MMOs rely heavily on post-launch support. Enemy variety. This is an issue that's been present pretty much since the closed alpha. Despite 3 enemy factions, there didn't seem to be much variety between different enemy types. Again, it will ultimately depend on what we see after launch. Do we put it past Massive to have some interesting enemies stowed away for different occasions? Not at all, and for that matter, how many action RPGs or MMOs have had differing character models for every single enemy in their repertoire? That being said, it actually comes down to the variety of challenge each enemy offers. If challenges are going to be a thing, we're hoping they're more than just X enemies have Y times the amount of health. We're hoping for interesting mechanics or restrictions when it comes to fighting swarms of the same character models. No, you can't have infinite variety, but something that helps differentiate one specific mission type from the rest would be great, especially after launch. Maybe missions which see us battling all 3 faction types at once as opposed to a single one. Raid bugs. Raids aren't called raids in the Division, rather they're incursions and require a hefty amount of skill to successfully complete. That means they're bound to have bugs specific to those instances and separate from the general performance of the game. Why is this such a big deal and separate from general bugs? Because we've seen firsthand how raid bugs can utterly destroy a hardcore fan's interest in an MMO. What's the point of working for hours on end if the instance just ends up bugged, thus prompting a restart? We're not even going to just hate on Destiny for this. Grand Theft Auto Online's Prison Break heist had a major bug that pretty much prevented completion and had no workaround. It also randomly triggered, and fans were left at the mercy of Rockstar to fix it. As more and more incursions are introduced in the Division over the next few months, it falls on Ubisoft Massive to properly test them and respond to major bugs before it's too late. Monthly events for Season Pass holders. This was a concern when the Season Pass was first announced, and it's no less valid even now. If you purchase the Season Pass for the Division, you apparently gain access to exclusive events each month. What is the nature of these events? What do they confer upon players? What possible reason could there be for making them exclusive to Season Pass owners? It's a very odd move to take. Shouldn't the content and exclusive items make the Season Pass worth owning?
We hope you've enjoyed this video, so please consider subscribing to our channel. We do original content, reviews, graphics comparison, and much more, and try to upload a video every day.